Greetings, everybody. I am your tour guide for today. Welcome to Wolfinia. This is episode 250 of my Minecraft survival series, and it is the World Tour episode. The World Tour of this world that we began way back in 2017. This world that is going on 5 years old at this point. Now, if you haven't been with us since the beginning, there's a lot you probably don't know about Wolfinia, and there's a lot I'm not going to tell you because that would involve too much of a time investment on my part, but I can give you guys the basics. So, let's go ahead and start at the beginning. Wolfinia began in the Legacy Console edition of Minecraft on PS4. That was Phase 1 of Wolfinia. We are currently in Phase 3. Phase 2 took place in the Bedrock Edition of Minecraft on PC. Phase 3, where we are now, is the Java Edition of Minecraft, obviously also on PC. So as you can imagine, this world has been through quite a bit over the years. A lot has changed here. A lot has been broken. A lot has been repaired. A lot of work has gone into what we have now. And I'm not just talking about the work of building up these structures, putting together redstone contraptions. I'm also talking about the work of tearing down what was here previous to this city. Because believe it or not, a good chunk of where Wolfinia is built used to be an extreme hills biome. We spent a lot of time tearing down mountains. Heck, we're still tearing down mountains. In fact, a lot of the bodies of water you see surrounding Wolfinia used to be land. So believe me when I say we've come a long way, and also that we have a long way to go. But I think it's time that we go ahead and kick off this tour. Now, we're not going to begin our tour in Wolfinia. We're going to begin our tour just outside of the city you can see right there, in a place I like to call the Approach. Now, the Approach is basically how we approach Wolfinia. We can get here through interdimensional gateways. We can get here by land or by sea. Now, regardless of how we decide to approach Wolfinia, our first stop in the approach to Wolfinia is going to be the Wolfinia Welcome Center. Now, let's put lore aside and talk about the practical purposes of having our Welcome Center located here in the approach. Because the employees that work here at the Welcome Center do more than just greet new guests to Wolfinia, they also provide new villagers for the city. This is our villager breeder. Now, as we go through this tour, I'm going to do my best to give you an idea of how everything works here in Wolfinia. So these guys, they don't do too much work on an empty stomach. Which I get, I understand completely. But once these guys are satisfied and they've had enough to eat, they should begin work, and yes, there they go. You can see how much they love their job, evidence being the little hearts floating above their heads as they work. But they are currently welcoming in a new resident to Wolfinia, that little dude right there, who's going to drop down into a water stream and make his way over to our next stop on the world tour, the Ferry Terminal. But before we head on over to the Ferry Terminal, I just want to take you around the Welcome Center real quick and show you a few more things. Upstairs here, we have a little museum that shows off a little bit of Wolfinia's history, some of our accomplishments. We have a little snack area over here, and of course, what kind of museum would this be if it didn't have a little gift shop? So this is our gift shop where we sell souvenirs, knickknacks. If you don't want souvenirs or knickknacks, we also take donations. I mean, running a city, as you can probably understand, is an expensive business. Just as these guys right here, we can barely afford to pay them. But let's go ahead and quickly make our way over to the Ferry Terminal. Our next destination, we'll see if we can beat the little villager over there, because this is where villagers go after the Welcome Center. This is basically how we transport villagers from the villager breeder, from the Welcome Center here at the Approach, into the city. Now, there is a little bit of lore here. We do have a ferry housed within this ferry terminal. That boat is named the Villager's Escape, but that is not our main means of transporting villagers, because the Villager's Escape does run on a fairly infrequent schedule. Usually what ends up happening is I pop the villagers down and do a little two-man rowboat, and I just take them over to the city myself. Because you know, sometimes if you need a job done, you can't wait for other people. You gotta do it yourself. But there is our little buddy right there. There is our new villager. And he will eventually make his way over into the city, but not today. Because these other guys have been waiting longer. They've been waiting for the villagers' escape here to ferry them over into the city. And it hasn't yet. Let's go see if we can figure out what the holdup is. So this is actually how we should board. Guys, do not follow my example. When it is time to board, do the right thing, all right? But let's go ahead and make our way up here and see if we can talk to the captain and figure out what the holdup is. I see what the holdup is. There is no captain. Guys, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. I'm sorry. Oh man, I hate seeing that look of disappointment on their faces. I wonder where the captain is. Maybe he's down here in the engine room, possibly, making sure the boat's ready to go. No. No, he is not. Well, I tried. Moving on. Let's backtrack quickly over here to the Welcome Center, because as we discussed at the start of this tour, there's multiple ways to get to the approach. You can come by land or by sea. You can also get from the approach to Wolfinia by land or by sea. Now, we discussed the sea route with the ferry terminal, but there's also a land route if we follow this path around here behind the Welcome Center, which is probably the more scenic route. We can reach our stables. So if you come riding into Wolfinia on a horse, this is where you can park and make a stop at the Welcome Center, buy some souvenirs, make some donations. Emeralds are always appreciated. And I should also mention that the Welcome Center is run by the Explorer's Lodge. You can see the Explorer's Lodge symbol right here, this green and blue-ish compass rose. We're going to be making a stop at the Explorer's Lodge fairly soon as we make our way into the approach. Now, at this point, I should probably mention that our last world tour came in just a little bit under 3 hours long. I'm going to try to keep this world tour a little bit shorter, which is why I'm trying to get from one area to another fairly quickly, but I also don't want to rush myself because I know a lot of you guys use these world tours as an opportunity to either familiarize yourself with the world or refamiliarize yourself with the world. But, as we mentioned, there are multiple ways to get to Wolfinia, and this is actually another one I forgot to mention. We can also get to Wolfinia by air. This is the Explorer's Lodge Airship, which is, so far, the first and only airship I've ever built, and you know what? I have to say, I am pretty happy with how this turned out. Let's go ahead and have a peek inside. This is called the Rover, by the way. Got seating down here. We make our way up to the bridge. You can see we have more seating for the crew. If we ever take a flight, this is going to be my spot, because I've actually been forbidden from sitting in this chair for reasons we're not going to get into right now. Now, as we make our way into the approach, you can see our first stop coming up here on the right. We already talked a little bit about it. This is the Explorer's Lodge. And the idea behind this place is that intrepid explorers from all across the globe can come here to gather with like-minded individuals such as these. These are all new explorers. We just welcomed them to the Explorer's Lodge fairly recently. And if you're curious as to how they got here, let me go ahead and show you. As I mentioned before, I have a little rowboat that I take from the ferry terminal down these underground passages that go all across Wolfinia and the approach, and we use those to get the villagers to where they need to be. Now, as you can see, the Explorer's Lodge houses a lot of our maps of our world. Let's go ahead and take a peek up here at the main map of the city of Wolfinia, and we'll talk about the route we're going to take throughout this world tour. This is probably a little close. Let's go ahead and make our way over here, and that's a little bit better. Okay, so currently we are down here at the Explorer's Lodge. We've already looked through a lot of the far approach area. We're going to make our way from here throughout the near approach into the farm district of Wolfinia. After that, we'll head out to the Waterside District, then make our way to the business district. From there, we'll head over to Wolfen's Labs in the quarantine district. Now, outside of the city, we have places like Enchanted Island, which we will check out at some point. We also have Ender Island, which you can see right here. We'll make our way over there, probably towards the end of the video. We will also be checking out the Eclipse Outpost. We will be having a look at our new flower farm area, which we just established. And at some point, probably after touring the city actually, we'll be making our way over to WARF, the Wolfen's Aquatic Research Facility. But before we worry about any of that, we're going to go ahead and finish making our way through the approach. Now, our next stop here at the approach is going to be the Approach Inn. And the Approach Inn basically serves as lodging for any visitors to Wolfinia that don't have anywhere else to stay. And there's plenty of amenities here at the Approach Inn. There's plenty of rooms. Guest services at the approach inn are just top notch, or at least they would be if we actually had any staff. We currently don't, but we will eventually. Now, as far as what there is to do here at the approach inn, over this way, we have a little fitness center in this first area where we can lift weights or get our cardio in. A little bit further along, we have a spa, and honestly, this is just a nice place to hang out, if nothing else. Now over on the opposite side of the approach inn, we have our concierge and a stain on the floor, because housekeeping has apparently not been doing their jobs. A little bit further along, we have a little snack area. Further along, we have our washroom with more stains on the floor, because we don't have any housekeeping staff, that's right. Then we have an arcade over here, which is a, fun place to hang out, but, there's not much to it. I mean, the approach inn, it just offers a place to stay, some basic amenities, a little bit of entertainment for those days where you want to stay in the hotel, but, there's just, not really too much more to it than that. Continuing along, you will notice that we have these platforms scattered throughout the approach, which represent phases of the moon. So right here, we have a crescent moon that comes just after our new moon right there. And these basically go in order as you follow along the path throughout the approach, which means just up ahead, we should come to the half moon. And the half moon is located just before the entrance to the approach neighborhood, where we have 3 houses, which are currently unoccupied. We will work on getting the approach populated at some point, but right now I'm just not totally convinced of its safety. Fun fact though, I actually used to live here. And I'm pretty sure somebody stayed here after me because, as you can see, this place is kind of a mess. And that's not something I would do. I am widely known for my cleanliness and organizational skills. But this used to be my bedroom right here. I also had a little closet over here. And also a little guest room upstairs. If I ever had any guests stay over, this is where they would have stayed. Now, as far as the other 2 houses in our approach neighborhood go, they've always been unoccupied as far as I know. This one's interesting. It's made out of straw. It's also got some repairs that need to be made, and some interesting design choices were made, including the carpet as far as decorations go. Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever stayed here, and I don't think anybody ever will. It's in desperate need of a remodel. Though it is located conveniently close to the neighborhood gazebo here. As far as the last house in the approach neighborhood goes, this one is, I don't know, it feels dark, it feels dingy, it feels closed off. This one's probably also in need of a remodel. Maybe knock down some of these walls, add a few windows, open it up a little bit. But that does, bring us back out here to the Explorer's Lodge, and it also wraps up this area of the approach. Now, if we were just doing this tour based on what we come across, the Wolfinia Labs Wormtail site right here would probably be our next stop. But we're going to return here a little bit later once we have some context for what that site actually is. Our actual next stop is going to be the near approach here with the gibbous moon on this platform. Now, this is meant to be one of the more social areas of the approach where people could just kind of hang out and chat with each other, or they could get up and go shopping at one of several of the merchant stalls we have located in between the gibbous and full moon platforms here. I do want this area to be populated like I want the rest of the approach to be populated, and even though we do our best to make sure that all these areas are non-spawnable, I'm just not 100% convinced as of yet. But now we are approaching the grand entrance to Wolfinia, marked by these 2 massive watchtowers. Now you will notice as we proceed through the city that all these builds have something going on the interior. This one is not fully furnished, but it does have a full interior. I like for builds to feel complete and for them to be more than just an empty shell. I mean, but that's just me. That's, purely my taste. Now, these watchtowers do provide excellent views all around the approach, all around Wolfinia, which is still, of course, a work in progress. There's a lot of work to be done. But let's go ahead and make our way up to the very tippy top, where you would expect the views to be even better. And I can tell you with confidence that they are actually even better if you have a very narrow field of view, because if you're using your peripheral vision, these logs kind of get in the way. But boy, oh boy, if these weren't here, the views, I'm sure, would be just outstanding. But I do think that probably does it for everything we're going to check out here at the approach. We hit all the major points. Now, there is a lot of little stuff we didn't really touch on, but, you know, if we're going to keep this video under 3 hours, we need to get moving along. But now with our tour of the approach done, let's go ahead and make our way along the outside of Wolfinia before we head inside Wolfinia. Because I want to show you the land beneath the water here. You will notice that it is perfectly flat. Obviously, that is not natural. That's something we made happen. We carved down the land here because I do want Wolfinia to be fully surrounded by water by the time we're done. Now, that includes this area over here, which we have not carved down yet. You can still see the natural land sticking up above the water. All of this is going to eventually have to go if we are to accomplish what we want to accomplish here. Now, the removal of all this land is for much more than just the aesthetics. This is also how we get a lot of the stone and cobblestone that we use in our builds. And you can actually see over here, this is about as far as we've gotten as far as clearing the land out surrounding Wolfinia. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, obviously. You know, we've been in this world for 5 years and I'm still working on it. But every once in a while, every so often, I do get in the mood for just a massive grind where I don't actually have to think about what I'm doing in an episode. And, you know, that's when we take care of all this stuff. Now, I don't want you to think that we're going to leave the bottom of these bodies of water just perfectly flat with nothing going on in them. We will eventually get around to dressing them up and making them look a bit more natural, but that is a ways off, and we have other stuff to talk about. For instance, right now we're going to make our way into the city, and our first stop is going to be the Farm District. Now, to get to the Farm District, we have to pass through our diagonal piston door right here, the grand entrance to Wolfinia. And this brings us into the Grand Rotunda. And this offers us a transition from the approach into the farm district of Wolfinia, offering up elements of each. Now, there is more to just the Grand Rotunda than that little area we walked in at. There is actually a whole lower section down here, which offers the farmers of Wolfinia, the visitors to Wolfinia, a nice shady little getaway where they can just come in here, sit down, and relax away from the afternoon sun and enjoy the peace and the ambiance. Now, ignore the beacon fountain right here. Those are something we're going to be working on at some point in the near future. But now that we have entered the city, it is time to start touring the farm district of Wolfinia. And I guess the route we're going to take is probably counterclockwise around our windmill here just to see what all this area is about. So let's go ahead and start with the centerpiece of this circle, our big old windmill right here. Now, this windmill serves as our wheat farm and also wheat storage. You can see this is an automatic farm where we have villagers down here planting their seeds and also harvesting their wheat. Now, once they harvest the wheat, they drop the wheat on the ground for a hopper minecart to pick up. The hopper minecart then brings all of that wheat into the storage system. So this is fully automatic, and these villagers are doing a great job keeping this place running. They're doing a great job keeping Wolfinia fed, and above all, they're doing a wonderful job giving me resources to trade with. Let's keep this thing moving along and check out some of our other food farms here in the farm district. So over here we have our potato farmer house. And we'll go in here. You can see it is furnished. It is kind of a mess in here, though, too, because we just got a new resident. I think both of our potato farmers are probably out here in the field harvesting their potatoes, working hard or hardly working. No, I'm just kidding. Y'all are doing a great job. But we do harvest the potatoes a little bit differently than we do our wheat. The villagers do harvest them automatically, but once they pick them up, they don't drop them on the ground. They deposit them into a minecart right there. But it is a job for two, so we are going to have to wait for the other guy to agree to meet our friend over there. So we'll hang out for a little bit and hopefully see that in action. You know what? I think it's my fault. because it's getting late and these guys are early birds. So let's go ahead and sleep through the night and hopefully that will get them to work first thing in the morning. Yep. See that? Instant. It's instant. So the potatoes are now being collected. The farmers kind of throw them to each other over the hopper minecart. They get collected by the hopper minecart and deposited into the potato storage system. Wonderful. But man, you guys really made me wait for that one, huh? Like a full day waiting on my potatoes. That's a full day waiting on a side dish. But it's fine. That's fine. We're going to keep this thing moving along and continue around our circle once we close these doors right here. So the next farm we're going to come across is our beetroot farm. And you can see our beetroot farmer is located in this corner. He's got his little house right here, also furnished. And the beetroot farmer works the same way as our wheat farmer, just harvests the crops, drop them on the ground. Hopper minecart picks them up and deposits our beets into our beetroot storage system right here. We also have our potato storage silo over that way. We'll see it eventually, I'm sure, as we continue around this circle. We got another little beacon fountain right there, and if we continue along this way, we can exit the farm district and get into the outer districts of Wolfinia, which are, as of yet, empty. We will work on those eventually, but I have no immediate plans to do so. Right now, continuing on our tour, we will come across the Farm District Council office. And the Farm District Council office used to be our villager breeder before we moved over to the Welcome Center. We'd have villagers in here making deliberations on whether or not to bring new villagers into the city. And we'd have one dude just kind of sitting out here in a boat overlooking a little village, which used to be through here. This is back when they used to use doors to determine the size of a village rather than beds. But now it's more or less just a, nice place to come and relax from time to time. Let's keep this thing moving along. So we're making our way through the last part of the circle now. We're behind the wheat farm. Back here we have my little tool shed. That's where I keep all my farm equipment and stuff like that. We also have one more farm that we're going to take a peek at in this back section, and that is our carrot farm. So to get there, we do have to make our way through the carrot farmer's house. And we do have two carrot farmers here, just like we have two potato farmers. In fact, the carrot farm works pretty much identically to the way the potato farm works. They harvest their carrots, throw them into the hopper minecart, and we are good to go. And that is the last of our villager food farms here in the farm district. You guys are doing an excellent job. At least you are. But now let's go ahead and make our way towards the markets. And I guess before we actually get to the markets, we should probably make a stop at my house. This is my old farmhouse, which is where I used to live back when we were still working on and building up the farm district here in Wolfinia. And I've moved out, but I still have some of my stuff here. Chanting set up over here. Back over this way, I had an anvil, but that's since been broken. We also have a little storage area down here. We'll check that out more in just a minute. My bedroom, right over here. Took my beds with me, though, when I moved out. And I also, believe it or not, had a roommate when I used to live here. And my roommate used to live at the top of these stairs. This was my roommate's room. Now, I don't really remember a whole lot about my roommate, which is kind of odd. I can't even remember one conversation that we've ever had, or what my roommate looks like. Strange. But yeah, we were talking about the storage room a second ago, so this is the actual way we get down to the storage room. We have a little cellar door right here, which should open and close, but apparently does not. And I thought I fixed everything prior to doing this world tour. Apparently I didn't. Oh, it works from this side. It works from this side. Can we actually get out this way, though? That's the question. Yeah, so it's just the top that's broken. Oh, and wonderful, now it's raining. Now this cellar does hold a little secret. There is a passageway leading from the cellar of my old farmhouse down deep beneath the city to an area where I have access to my storage system and the nether. Now, we're going to be addressing both those things in this episode. I will say, though, that the storage system is something that we are going to be readdressing in a big way in the coming episodes. Now, before we actually get to our market, we have a couple more builds I want to show you. First of all, we have our barn right here. And the barn is a fun diagonal build. It's like one of my first times experimenting with diagonal builds. Obviously, this is where we keep our sheep, it's where we keep our cows, and they actually do stay here now. We did, up until recently, have a problem with them escaping and wandering all over the place, but that, luckily, is no longer an issue. So this is the interior of the barn. We do actually have a little hay loft up here because, as I mentioned earlier, I like for these builds to feel complete. Now that pretty much does it for the barn, but we're not done with this back area yet because if we make our way up this way behind the barn, we do have one more little farm, and this is our melon farm. As you can see, there's a little melon right there. Not a lossless farm by any means, but it gets the job done. Now I'm going to hang out here and just wait for a minute so you guys can see it in action. Oh, here we go. So now the melons are being harvested. Basically how this works is we have a hopper minecart beneath the ground that activates pistons as it passes beneath them, and then harvests the melons, and then on its return trip it does collect the melons, as you can see right there. Now it gets most of the melons, but it does not get all of them. Some of them you will probably see remain in place, but the vast majority are collected. Those are the slackers right there. We don't even want those melons though. I wouldn't even consider those fit for consumption. But this pretty much covers the distal portion of the farm district, and this path just brings us back around to the Grand Rotunda. Next up, we're going to be making our way over to the farmer's market. Now, the farmer's market is where a lot of our villagers like to hang out. It's also where we store our melons, and apparently a single carrot for some reason. I don't know why that's in there. A lot of these farmers like to try to make their way upstairs and also prevent me from going upstairs. There is an upstairs to this place. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you though. But of course, this being the farmer's market, this is where we do a lot of our trading with farmers. And we get them here from the ferry terminal using these underground passages, which we talked about a little bit earlier, that go all throughout our city. But yeah, these farmers, they keep Wolfinia's economy going. Are you one of my trading? Yeah, you're the guy that escaped, aren't you? You want to go home? You regretting leaving now? Come on, you go home. Oh my goodness, just go. No, you do not leave. Work hours are not over. You need, no, this is a bad idea. Okay, we're fine. You guys are a pain in the butt, tell you what. That's fine, we'll leave them. It's fine. Next up, we're gonna make our way into the stables. Now, the stables, obviously, this is where we keep all of our horses. Now, at this point, most of our horses are skeleton horses. I'm about to talk to Wesley, our stable boy, and just make sure that he's feeding these guys properly, make sure they're getting all the nourishment that they need. You know what? It's night. Let's go ahead and sleep through the night, see if we can get it all nice and bright out here, see if we can get rid of this rain real quick before we continue on our tour. Have it be a little bit more pleasant for us as we continue along. Yeah, that's much better. Alright, so next up we're going to be making our way over here to Jumping Jack-o'-lanterns, our pumpkin farm. And this works pretty much the same way as our melon farm does, it's just a little bit more entertaining. Because as the hopper minecart goes and harvests our melons, we start getting these little jack-o'-lantern dudes on their slime blocks bouncing up and down. Like this guy is right here. Look at him. He's so bouncy. Now, I think that pretty much covers all the major sites, all the major features, and all the major farms here in Wolfinia's farm district. Obviously, there's other little odds and ends you guys didn't get to see, but, you know, we gotta keep things moving along here. So, the next stop on our world tour is going to be Wolfinia's Waterside District. Now, as far as the Waterside District goes, this is an incomplete district, as you can see. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done here, so we're not going to spend a ton of time here, but I will go over some of our plans with you and some of our completed builds. So this structure I'm standing atop now is a build that I am currently planning. It's going to be a massive build and the centerpiece to the city. As far as the other major feature of the Waterside District goes, this place will play home to our storage system, our new storage system, or at least the main section of our new storage system. Now, I will kind of be reworking some of the stuff you see here now, so, you know, this isn't how it's going to ultimately end up looking. I fell into a hole. Did you guys just kind of pretend that you didn't see that. We'll talk more about the storage system next episode. Right now we're on a tour, so let's just continue the tour. So this is where we house our ores. You can see we have a little smelter right here for our ores. I even have a little ore breakdown area over here. If we hop over this guardrail, you can plummet down here, and here's where we stack up our ores and then break them down. With the help of our handy dandy fortune pickaxe, we just get a bunch of raw ores, which is super convenient, and I'm glad they made that addition to the game. As far as other stuff in this area goes, we do have a way to access our bulk storage. If we go down this way, this leads us to an area we've already been. My farmhouse is through there. This is the bulk storage, and as I said, we're going to talk more about that later, and we're going to be redoing a lot of stuff storage-wise here. But I think that pretty much covers it for all the stuff on this side of the Waterside District, aside from my nether portal right here. This is actually the main nether portal that I use, and we'll talk more about the nether and all our builds there a little bit later once we actually get to the nether. But right now, we are not touring the Nether, we are touring the Waterside District, and one of the main features of the Waterside District, at least originally, is this boat right here. This boat is the first boat I'd ever built in Minecraft. This is the Flying Wolfman. And a long time ago, back when we used to do AFK fishing, this served as our AFK fish farm. We've since remodeled it, and the fish farm that was in here is now gone. This is now the captain's quarters for our co-captains, Cho and Kobo. They have replaced the Dread Pirate Roberts, relieved him of his responsibilities, and they have also gotten rid of the fish farm storage that used to be down here and replaced it with an actual interior. So even though this was one of our early builds, a lot of the additions to it have come much later, so I don't know if we can consider any of our builds ever really being complete. But that does bring us to our next build here in the Waterside District. A little bit further on down the docks, you may notice we have another ship. You may have also noticed earlier when we were at the Ferry Terminal that we only had one ferry housed there. This is the other one. That is dangerous. Let's walk across this thing. This is the Villagers Escape 2, sister ship to the Villagers Escape, back at the Ferry Terminal. Now, if you look around this ship and you have a keen eye, you will notice that these two ferries are not quite identical, but they are very similar. The captain leaving his windows open. That's actually a side effect of the dimensional shift of the conversion from Bedrock to Java, which I am going to take care of now. One moment, please. Now, I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to touch on here in the Waterside District, aside from the Netherworm. Now, the Netherworm is something we're going to get into a little bit more in depth a little bit later, but I will go ahead and show you this massive beast that stretches all throughout the New Moon Bay here in the Waterside District of Wolfinia, and actually extends as far as the Wormtail site at the approach. This thing has caused a lot of destruction around here. This thing has caused me a lot of headaches, and it's all thanks to the Apostates, and we will be discussing the Apostates a little bit later as well. But now it's time to continue along with our tour and explore our next district, which was the first district we ever built here. This is Wolfinia's Business District. And fun fact, the business district was intended to be the whole of the city when I started this series. I did not plan to build any more than this, but as the years have gone on, we've just continued to expand further and further, as is the Wolfinia way. But the business district, despite being one of the first districts we built, is still one of my favorites. Probably always will be one of my favorites here in Wolfinia. Now, as far as our tour of the business district goes, there's going to be a lot to see here, and I think we're just going to work our way clockwise around the district, starting with this build right here. This build is the Farming Operations Office of Luna. Now, why it's called the Farming Operations Office of Luna and not the Farming Operations Office of Wolfinia, I couldn't tell you. And I'd like to ask one of the politicians that should be working here in this place, but you know, good luck finding them when you need them. Great views though. This place does offer great views of the business district. Also offers us a view of the farm district on this side. So maybe that makes up for how useless this place is. Now, one interesting feature of the farming operations office is that it does link up to several areas. We have this tunnel that goes directly beneath the farming operations office of Luna, which you can see right there. Brings us to the business district. Also links up to the farm district. So basically we have options when traveling through Wolfinia. You know, we can get from one place to the other without having to go too far out of our way. We can also access our local law enforcement office from the farming operations office of Luna, and this is one of our deputies, Iron Mike, and local breakdancing champion. Oh, sweet spin. Like your moves. A little bit further along, we have Deputy Roxy Diaz, and the whole crew is gathered here. They probably just came out of a meeting or something over here at the enforcement office. Folio, for short. Excuse me, fellas. I got business. Unfortunately, it does not look like anybody's working the desks right now. It does not look like anybody's working at all, actually. Which is just so typical. No, seriously, where is everybody? I hear you. There you are. What you doing out here? It's not break time. It's time to get to work. I'm doing a world tour, man. And you know what? We gotta make a good impression. Doesn't have to be an accurate impression, just has to be a good one. Here, you need to get to your post. I hear you. You need a new chair. You deserve a new chair, one that's easier for you to climb up into. But for right now, these folks need some help. You need to help them. Up next on our tour, we're going to make our way to one of the staples of the business district, one of the most important builds, at least in the early part of this series. This is our paper farm. And this farm is responsible for jump-starting Wolfinia's economy and getting us going to where we are today. Welcome one and all to Dunder Minecraft. And they do it all here. They harvest the sugarcane to make the paper, they make the paper, they trade the paper, they give me the emeralds for the paper. All these librarians who of course come from our Ferry Terminal like all our other villagers. These villagers, they are the true heroes of Wolfinia. Next up, we are going to be making our way over here to Luna's Forge, and this is our super smelter. Actually, our super smelter is in here. This is our super smelter. This is the structure that houses the super smelter, and within this structure are a network of rails and hopper minecarts that carry fuel and items to be smelted to our many furnaces and retrieve these smelted items and bring them back to me. Now I have set up a little demonstration for you guys just to show you how it works, and also because, well, I'm going to need some glass for future projects, so this is beneficial in multiple ways. But now that we have all of our items input, you will start seeing those items make their way into the furnaces, ready to be smelted into glass. And since we are using a bunch of furnaces, that means a lot of glass is being smelted at one time, which does give us a fairly quick return on our investment. So you can see now the glass is coming in, and it is coming in at a fairly good rate. So by the time we're done with our tour of the business district, we should have this chest half full. But now it is time to move on to the next stop on our tour. This is the Rotunda. Not to be confused with the Grand Rotunda. But fun fact, the Rotunda here was actually meant to be the grand entrance into Wolfinia when Wolfinia was limited to the business district. Now, much like the Grand Rotunda, we have multiple layers to this place. We have a ground floor, which was meant to be just kind of a peaceful area to hang out for weary travelers to come and rest after their journeys before they head into the city. They could just come down here, take a quick breather, and then get on about their business. But now the Rotunda serves another purpose. If we head out this way, that leads us over to some docks and a nice little scenic area. But the purpose of these docks is, this is where we can catch a ferry over to Apostate Island. Now, why anybody would want to go to Apostate Island, I don't know, but people have weird fascinations, and who am I to question them? We will actually be headed over to Apostate Island just so I can show you all that nonsense a little bit later. But that's beside the point. Now, it isn't always sunshine and roses here in Wolfinia. We have our bad moments too. This next build is the Villager Memorial, and this is dedicated to those villagers we unfortunately lost early in the establishment of this city. And those villagers include Balthazar, Samus, Mr. Hanzo, and Zampano, who was the original proprietor of the House of Leaves, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. But the next stop on our tour is going to be this build, property of the New Moon Mining Company. This is the Enchanted Snack Bar. And the Enchanted Snack Bar is apparently currently closed. That's fine. Oh, but this actually used to be one of my first houses here in this world. You can see my old enchanting setup right there. My bedroom was right through there. And I had a little storage set up in the attic here where apparently Rosie is locked out of. There you go, Rosie. Rosie runs the Enchanted Snack Bar now, but this was my old little storage area, which apparently now has a tenant. I still got some of my stuff I need to move out. Excuse me. Rosie. Excuse me. Rosie! Excuse me. My goodness. Okay. We're fine. Moving along, the next stop on our tour today is going to be the Luna Garden Center. And the Luna Garden Center is where we used to get a lot of our dyes, and we still do get some from here. We have a double high flower farm right here. Over on this side, we have a little cocoa bean farm, which harvests automatically, but I do have to replant our cocoa beans manually. So, just give me a minute to do that. Our next point of interest is going to be our cactus towers. Now, a long time ago, we used to have flower farms in these towers, but now they all produce cactus, and we do have a pretty good supply of cactus stored up. Now, since the primary cacti storage here is filled up, most new cacti we produce is routed over to the Wolfen's Lab showroom right there for a little demo project I'll show you guys a little bit later. But I think that might be it for the garden center, with one small exception. There is another outdoor, outside the walls section of the garden center I've yet to show you. This is where we moved our flower farms after we took them out of the cactus towers. Now, the flower farms are no longer here, but we do still store our flowers here. This area is now primarily just used for honey production. Our next stop is going to be the House of Leaves. Now, this place has a troubled history. Every owner of the House of Leaves, everybody that's worked here, has suffered some kind of terrible fate. We already talked about Zampano. A lot of you guys know about Cookie, the next owner. Now, this place is run by Wolfen's Labs. And fun fact, we can actually get to Wolfen's Labs using this secret passage right here. Don't tell anybody, though. It's a secret, and in fact, I probably shouldn't have told you guys. But that's fine. You guys can keep secrets, right? Anyway, the House of Leaves is home to our vine farm right here. It's also home to our sweetberry farm over here on this side. And it will be home to several other botanical farms, because the House of Leaves is not yet complete. We do have one more farm here, though. This is our moss farm. And the moss farm is so far the only fully automatic farm here we have in the House of Leaves. You just switch this on, and it does take a minute to warm up, but you will be able to see it start going and producing moss for us and all the mossy goodness, the azaleas and all that mess. Just give it a second. This is an AFK farm. Normally I'm not standing here watching it. I just let it run. Our next stop is going to be one of my favorite farms here in the business district, and it's not my favorite because it's efficient or anything like that. It's my favorite because it's loud and obnoxious, and you've probably heard our friend Sawyer as we've toured the business district. This is the Timberland Tree Farm. Now, the Timberland Tree Farm is our gas-powered tree farm, which we can use to get several different types of wood. In the tree farm's normal mode, and the normal mode is when the ceiling is raised, we can get birch, we can get spruce, and we can get jungle. Now, let's say we wanted to get oak from this farm. We do have an oak mode right here, which lowers the ceiling by a couple blocks, ensuring we don't have any large oak trees growing. But basically how this works is we plant the trees grow up, they get taken away, we plant another tree. The trees are then moved towards Sawyer and reduced in size from, I think, 5 tall down to 3 tall, down to 1 block tall. And then they're fed to Sawyer, who blows them up over some hoppers and harvests them for us. Then obviously we collect them and reap the benefits. Now, as I said, this is not the most efficient farm because in order for Sawyer to be able to blow up all the logs and for us not to get this thing backed up, it does need to run fairly slowly. And that's why we primarily use this as an AFK farm, so I don't have to sit here and actually plant the saplings, I just have the button held down while I'm off doing other stuff. Saplings get planted automatically, that's the only input that needs to be made from me. Also, it's an AFK farm because, I'll be honest, as much as I like Sawyer, I don't always want to sit here and just get yelled at, you know? And he yells a lot. But now that we've worked our way along the outside of the business district, there is only one more build to look at. And that build is the center of the business district, the heart of the business district. This is the New Moon Mining Company. And the New Moon Mining Company is a very important area in Wolfinia. This is an area where we spend a lot of time, especially early on. We do have one resident here, and this is Donkey. Donkey is over here. Donkey likes to hang out over here for some reason. This is Donkey. Donkey tends to the grounds here. Now, as far as builds in the New Moon Mining Company, we have the Enchanted Pickaxe, which was one of our very first builds here in this world. It also houses the Witherer, a regular bow we used to take out a Wither in episode 40. I have my pinball machine here too, and I have the highest score on this bad boy, because I'm the only one who plays it. This is also where we house our masons, and we're going to give them more room eventually, but I haven't done that yet. I also have an old nano wheat farm right here, which I haven't used in quite a while. I don't know if it still works or not. But that is pretty much it for the Enchanted Pickaxe, unless you have something you'd like to add. No? That's fine. Now, of course, the New Moon Mining Company also houses one of our early mines. Does this elevator work, I'm wondering? I don't believe I repaired this after the dimensional shift, but it does seem to be working. That's wonderful. There's the storage system right there. This is going to take us down deep into the world to where we were doing our mining early on in the series. But the world is much deeper. The world is much bigger now, so we are eventually going to come back here and deepen this mine shaft, so that way it can take us down to the new mines, which we will be creating here eventually. Because like I said earlier, nothing we do here in Wolfinia is ever truly complete, you know? But this thing is loud, this thing is obnoxious, it's dangerous, it is also broken. I was gonna say, I like the fact that it's loud, obnoxious, and dangerous because, you know, it's a mineshaft elevator. It should be. Holy crap. Ow. Okay, you know what, this thing is so broken. Hold on, give me a second to figure out how I can turn this off. Alright, where was I? We were going to look at the mine and all that stuff down here, right? So, let's go ahead and first check out the spider farm, because we do have a spider farm over here that we rebuilt fairly recently, that appears to have sustained some damage because this area is surrounded by lava, and even though I thought I took care of it all, or at least the lava that was close enough to actually pose a threat, apparently I did not. That's fine. I'll fix that later. But yeah, spider farm. But as far as our old mines go, you can see we have branch mines carved into the walls over here. This is where we did a lot of our mining at the start of the series. Now it's mostly just a backstage area for some of our builds. For instance, our slime farm right there. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. But these mines, they have not been in use in quite a while. Though I do have plans to reinvigorate the New Moon Mining Company's mining business by delving deeper and deeper into the depths of our world. At least we will once it's safe to do so, because as of now, this place is still incredibly dangerous. I've started lighting up a lot of it, but this place is huge and I'll say less than hospitable at the moment. Now, we have one more thing to look at in the business district, and that is our storage system, which is currently broken. You'll notice all the double chests are split into single chests. That is just a side effect of the dimensional shift. But the storage system was my pride and joy for a while. It stretched beneath all of Wolfinia, going from the farm district over to Wolfen's Labs, and obviously here at the business district as well. But this thing is not operational, nor do I expect it to be anytime soon, because I am going to be tearing out all the redstone that makes up this storage system, and we are going to be reworking it into a new storage system, starting probably next episode. And I am actually really looking forward to it because I've been planning this out for a while, trying to figure out what I want to do, trying to figure out how to make this the best storage system possible for me, you know? So tune in if you want to see that. But if you guys follow me this way, we are going to go ahead and wrap up our tour of the business district and make our way back up into the Waterside District. And this is the opposite side of the Waterside District. I don't believe we really came over here, but there's not much to see anyway. But that is going to lead us to the next stop on our tour, the world-renowned Wolfen's Laboratory. And this place will probably be better to have a peek at nighttime. So you know what? I'm just going to go hang out for a little bit, get a bite to eat, and then I'll meet you back here in a little while. But now that night is upon us, it is time to make our way into Wolfen's Laboratory. Now, access to Wolfen's Laboratory is restricted to those of us who know how to push buttons. But if you do know how to push a button, this gate will open for you and you can come right on in here, and the gate does automatically close behind you to keep all the non-button pushers out. The first stop on our tour of Wolfen's Laboratory is going to be the Wolfen's Laboratory Showroom. And that is the main part of this section of Wolfen's Laboratory. The other section, the Quarantine District, is much bigger, but also much more incomplete. That's an area that we're going to focus a lot more on once me and Mr. Wolfens actually figure out what we're going to do there. But for right now, let's go ahead and make our way into the showroom, where the first thing you're going to see is a bunch of fun little experiments that show just how fun science can be. We also have our information desk guy right here who will give you information on how fun science can be. But it's not all fun and games here for our visitors, because even here in the showroom, a lot of the areas are restricted to authorized personnel. So to enter this area, we're going to need to enter our ID badge into this dropper right here. So this door will now open for us. We will get our ID badge back immediately. And that gives us access to one of our monitoring areas, where researchers have been watching the Netherworm and keeping tabs on this monstrosity. We'll talk more about the Netherworm in just a little bit, because there's a whole lab devoted to that thing. Now, we don't have a whole lot to show off here in the upstairs area of the showroom yet, but we do have one thing. So you remember earlier how we were talking about our cactus towers and how the cacti were now being diverted over here to the showroom? They're actually being diverted over here to the Reaper prototype, the renewable energy and augmented performance enhancing research prototype. And you can see the cacti are now getting smelted in this furnace. Basically how this works is that once the cacti back up into the furnace, I can pull cacti out of the furnace and just get tons of XP, which is very handy if we need to quickly mend up any of our tools. Now, what you can see on the surface here is only a small portion of Wolfen's Labs. The majority, hello, thank you. The majority of Wolfen's Labs is located beneath the ground in these subterranean research areas. A lot of these labs are incredibly dangerous, such as this one right here. That's why we have a wet floor sign, so nobody accidentally makes their way over there. A little bit further on down this way, we have access to a lab that is not really in heavy usage anymore. This is a little zombie spawner farm, which we used to use to convert zombies into drowned, or also to convert zombies into zombie villagers in any of these conversion chambers. I don't believe the latter is even possible anymore in this dimension, but once upon a time, we got some use out of this. So as you can see, Wolfen's Labs has a heavy focus on hostile mobs, and one of the hostile mobs we deal with here are ghasts. This is how we got Sawyer, and we have a whole system here devoted to capturing additional Sawyers should we need them. Now, as far as ghasts go, ghast don't spawn in the overworld, they only spawn in the nether. We do bring them over to the overworld from the nether using this portal though. We then capture them in a minecart using the rail system we have here, and using the rail system we can route them to wherever we want them to go in Wolfinia. Now there is a nether counterpart to this place. We will take a peek at that once we actually make our way into the nether. But right now we're just focused on the Wolfen's Lab stuff. So we are going to continue down deep into the bowels of Wolfen's Labs, where we have another farm over here and also some incomplete areas. We will continue to work on this place, but this right here is our slime farm. Now this is a 3-chunk slime farm, but it is a pretty basic 3-chunk slime farm. We don't use golems or anything like that to lure the slime over the edge. The slime just kind of naturally find their way off their platforms and onto the magma blocks below. And despite the fact that we are depending on the slime to provide us with slime balls, this is more than efficient enough to provide me with all the slime I could ever want. Basically, once the slime goes splat and drop their slime balls, we do have a hopper minecart that goes along underneath the magma blocks to pick up the slime balls and deposit them into the storage system. But that, I think, wraps up our tour of the Wolfen's Laboratory showroom area with one rather large exception. Right now, we're going to head on over to the Quarantine District and see what all that has to offer before making our way back over here to check out the monstrosity that's wrought so much destruction upon our fair city here. So the Netherworm will be the last thing we check out before leaving Wolfen's Labs, but right now we're going to check out the Quarantine District. So obviously this is a restricted area that we have to enter through a fancy set of piston doors right here, which not only open and close, but hide the mechanism that it uses to open and close. Now, like much of Wolfen's Labs, we do need our ID badge to get access to this area. So we can place our ID badge in here in the view of Cerberus, who, if we are not authorized to access this area, will take action. But of course, I am authorized to access this area, so I can come through here. This will seal back up behind us. We hop over this wet floor sign right here and get access into the Quarantined Hub. And from here, we can access all kinds of areas around Wolfen's Laboratory, including this area, the Areas area, which is the accommodations, recreation, entertainment, and storage area. This is where staff in the Quarantine District can come and get a quick bite to eat in between shifts, or they could even take up residence here if they chose. Now, so far I am the only resident here. This right here is my room. Very comfortable, very accommodating. We also have another vacant room right here, and another vacant room right here. Now, there's no AC here, and it is always very humid, but Mr. Wolfens has assured me that all these rooms, all these accommodations are very comfortable and accommodating. Upstairs here, this is the storage area where I have some furnaces, some chests, all that stuff. We also have access to other areas of the Quarantine District. Speaking of, let's go ahead and make our way downstairs. So just one floor down from our accommodations, we have access, or will have access, to other areas around Wolfinia. For instance, we'll have access to the House of Leaves that you can see over there on this side. If we go a little bit further down this way, we'll have access to the Botanical Analysis Division of Wolfen's Labs. If we go a little bit further across this way, we'll have access to our now defunct Phase 2 Slime Farm. This farm is a farm we used when this world was in the Bedrock Dimension, but as of now, this is completely and utterly useless. And then at the very bottom of the areas area, we do have access to another secret passage here in our city. We can go through this way and get access into the storage system. Now you'll notice the storage system is flooded. That is due to the runoff from the Quarantine District here, which is unfortunate. But I can't say enough about the convenience of having these areas linked up, and it's totally worth it. Our next stop in the Quarantine District is the Biochemical Research and Pharmacology Division. Now, unfortunately, we do have some malfunctioning components in this section. Door doesn't work. That's due to all the flooding that's down here. But this is where we house our automatic potion brewers, and among the potions we can brew are night vision potions, fire resistance potions, strength potions, healing potions, regeneration potions, weakness potions, harming potions, healing potions, poison potions, and another potion of our choosing should we decide we need more potions. Over on this way, I can refill my water bottles and also get access to another incomplete area, which we will work on eventually. Now, the Biochemical Research and Pharmacology Division also has an upstairs. We can access this catwalk right here, which gives us easy access to all our droppers in case we need to replenish our ingredients for any of the potions we're brewing here. We can also replenish our supply of netherwort here, and this is easily accessed from the areas. It's just a basic netherwort farm manual, but it gets the job done. Our next stop in the quarantine district is ordnance production. This is our creeper farm, and it is run by cats. We have brave cats who pilot their minecarts from these areas down here up into the creeper farm to bolster Wolfinia's supply of gunpowder, which we use primarily for rockets, but also occasionally for, explosions. Now, the cats aren't always at work. Sometimes they do come here to play, and they have plenty of room to play in here. This area is basically one big cat house. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, where is the actual creeper farm? The actual creeper farm is over this way. You've seen that big tower in the quarantine district? The creeper farm is that big tower. And this is where the creepers come out. You can see we have a couple about to make their way down. Once they fall, they go splat, drop their gunpowder, at which point a hopper minecart comes to pick up the gunpowder and take it to our storage system over there. Now, here are the minecarts, so you should see the gunpowder get picked up. There we go. Now, there is more to this place. There's more to this tower than just the creeper farm. If we come up here directly beneath the creeper farm, that gives us access to the two side wings, which make up the Espionage and Regional Reconnaissance Operations Research Site. Now, in here, it looks like they're studying bits and pieces of the Netherworm, and most likely just using their reconnaissance stuff here, all these crazy machines I know nothing about, to keep tabs on any developments with the Netherworm, and to my knowledge, there have been no developments with the Netherworm, which is, obviously a good thing. Now, I am more familiar with what goes on this side of the Errors building. Not because I know how any of this complicated scientific equipment works down here, but because I do have a little workstation up here where I like to at least try to do my part and contribute to the research here. So, crap. You guys weren't supposed to see that. I thought I'd close that out. We don't play games here at Wolfen's Labs. No, we do serious research and stuff like that. You know what? Let's just... Hi. Wow, that was scary. Let's just continue on to the next stop on our tour. This is the Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Development Decoy Division, otherwise known as Rotunda. So one thing we do here in Wolfen's Labs is we build robots, and I can actually give you a quick demonstration of how we put together one of our decoy robots, and you'll learn more about them as this tour goes on. But basically, we need to get one of our endoskeletons here, and then we place that endoskeleton on the assembly line, and it's slowly going to get put together by all these crazy little machines that we have here. We don't want to get too close to any of this stuff, but we can watch it build one of these decoy robots from the ground up. So now that it has its feet on, you're going to see it's going to put on some mesh legs, and those basically contain all the wiring and all the musculature of the robots. You'll see it go up here and get its upper body put together. There's its torso, and now all the face mesh right there. Now, before it goes on and gets all wired up, we do need to come and inspect it, just make sure everything's looking good, and everything does look good to me. So, it's going to proceed upstairs at this point, and since it now has all of its components, it is ready to go to programming. Now, that's going to take place at a separate section of the Rotunda facility, which unfortunately I'm not allowed into. Once it's done with programming, it will be sent through the armory and given a set of armor, and then pass through this area yet again en route to the final area where the robot will be reskinned and finally sent off to do whatever task has been assigned to it. Continuing along with Rotunda, we are now moving to the Defense Division. That's where this big guy right here comes from. The Rotunda Defense Division is responsible for producing some of our larger robots here in Wolfinia. For instance, down here we have a gatekeeper robot being assembled. And the gatekeeper robots are basically responsible for controlling and restricting access to areas where access should be controlled or restricted. Down this way, we have the peacekeeper robot, but we can get a better view of it from up here. The peacekeeper robot is our heavy weapons platform. It can actually be outfitted with any number of weapons, but that is responsible for the defense of Wolfinia. Moving along, we have one more robot currently in production in the Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Development Defense Division, and that is the new Cerberus model. Now, the Cerberus is also responsible for controlling access to restricted areas, but unlike the Gatekeeper, the Cerberus is a little bit more aggressive with how it operates. Our next stop is the Botanical Analysis Division, otherwise known as BAD. And BAD is where we get all of this good stuff right here. The Botanical Analysis Division is basically supposed to be where we get all of our botanical stuff that is not native to the overworld. So for instance, if we want some crimson and warp fungus, we can come in here, flip on this little farm, and that will automatically produce some crimson and warp fungus for us. Once we have what we need, we can go through here, collect it manually, and let's say we want the big fungus, the huge fungus. If that's the case, we can come down here, plant the fungus on this nylium, and then hit this button right here, which would bone meal the fungus, creating a huge fungus for us. And then as far as harvesting that huge fungus goes, all we really need to do is pop back up here, fly down on top of it, and then we can harvest it manually. Now obviously we are using bone meal dispensers for the resources that we gather here at BAD, so we are going to need a way to get a reliable source of bone meal. So if you follow me down this incomplete corridor, I will go ahead and take you to our bone meal farm, which is basically just a skeleton spawner farm where I can AFK until I have what I need. Now, if we head upstairs in the quarantined hub, this is basically the corporate area of Wolfen's Labs. We have offices along the side hall which belong to our board of directors. As you can see, there's no names above any of the doors anymore because Wolfen's Labs no longer has a board of directors. Wolfen's Labs is now run solely by its founder, CEO, and ruler of Wolfinia, the great Mr. Wolfens. So obviously this boardroom right here doesn't get much use anymore, but I'm sure once upon a time important decisions were made here and then subsequently overruled by Mr. Wolfens. Speaking of Mr. Wolfens, this is his office right here. Now I'm not sure that Mr. Wolfens would really appreciate me showing you his office, but I'm going to anyway because he has this portrait right here which is just so amazing and dignified. I mean, look at that beard. Wish I could grow a beard like that. Our final stop on our tour of the Quarantine District is the LEAP project. This is where we house the Light Enhancing Apparatus prototype. Now, I am actually currently wearing the Light Enhancing Apparatus prototype, which enables us to see our world in different ways. For instance, we can look at the world the way we normally look at it in most of our episodes. Or we can turn the full light enhancement on and enjoy the ray tracing and stuff like that and see our world in a completely different way. But for this tour, we're going to continue looking at the world like this. Now, I do believe that pretty much wraps up most of what there is to see here in the Quarantine District. But we're not done with Wolfen's Labs just yet. There is one more thing we need to take a look at. Beneath the Wolfen's Laboratory showroom, just beyond this wet floor sign, is the beast that's caused me, Mr. Wolfens, and all of Wolfinia so much trouble. This is the face of the Netherworm. And the Netherworm, believe it or not, actually thought it could eat Wolfen's laboratory coming up through here, which is just ridiculous. As you can see, the Netherworm is now in stasis though, and we can actually venture inside it and make our way through the Netherworm's body. Or, to be more specific, through its digestive system. Now, this is a pretty big digestive system because it stretches all the way from over here at Wolfen's laboratory to back where we started this world tour at the approach. Now, traveling through the Netherworm is generally not recommended, and it is especially not recommended for those who are not wearing hazmat suits, and it has just occurred to me that I am definitely not wearing a hazmat suit. But traveling through the Netherworm also offers us very convenient access to several places around Wolfinia. Specifically those places which house nether portals, because the Netherworm does connect to virtually all of our nether portals here in Wolfinia in one way or another. Most of the portals it connects to physically through these porticles that reach off to, for instance, the portals surrounding our storage system. Those portals it doesn't connect to physically, it connects to historically and lore-wise. It also connects to the Wormtail site. We are back here at the approach. The Wormtail site is where scientists from Wolfen's laboratory study the worm's tail. And you can see we have various little areas over here, little tiny laboratories, where in this one they're studying its fecal matter, which I suppose includes me at this point. Which, I suppose that's nothing new. I've passed through the worm several times now. Never wearing one of these hazmat suits, which I should definitely put on when I go through there. But it's fine. You know, I'm sure everything is a-okay. But this is a heavily guarded site, or at least it should be. Unfortunately, we don't really have any staff here currently, but, you know, we will eventually. Now, that pretty much does wrap it up for Wolfen's Labs in the city. It wraps it up for the entirety of the approach, pretty much. And that is indeed a pretty good chunk of this world tour done, but there is still a lot left to see. So, let's go ahead and make our way outside the city to see what else this world has to offer. If we venture just past the New Moon Bay, right off the shore of Wolfinia, we come to Wharf. Wharf is the Wolfen's Aquatic Research Facility. The Wolfen's Aquatic Research Facility is home to several of our aquatic-based farms, including our Guardian Farm, our Kelp Farm, and a Sea Pickle Farm. Wharf also plays home to our fishermen villagers who run this place pretty much. Now, there's a lot to see here at Wharf. We are going to do a quick tour of it, but we're mostly going to touch on the major features. Now, lore-wise, if we head down into this first area, we have some offices. You can see we have a little server room right here, some workstations that the villagers never use. If we go a little bit further down the hall, this is our warehouse. This is the logistics section of Wharf, and it is responsible for moving supplies around Wharf. It's responsible for getting supplies from the boats into Wharf, because Wharf is not self-sufficient. We get most of our supplies here from Wolfen's laboratory. You will notice we have a crane here. The crane picks up items from the boats that Wolfen's lab sends and brings them up here to the loading bay so they can be distributed where they need to be around Wharf. Another thing I am also noticing about Wharf is that when we have shaders on, and we currently do have shaders on for this world tour, it is very laggy, very framey, and I don't like it. The reason for that is Wharf it's got a lot of stuff going on. As I said, we have our Guardian Farm here, so you can see tons of drops and even a Guardian for some reason. On top of all that, we have just a ton of bubbles beneath the sea here, because we use the soul sand method for, bringing our Guardians to where we want them to be. But since we have already started talking about our Guardian Farm, what do you say we go ahead and make the Guardian Farm our next stop? Now, in order to get to the Guardian Farm, we just have to climb down Wharf Central Tower a little bit. And this Guardian Farm has two modes. It has a Drops mode and an XP mode. Currently, it's in Drops mode, where the Guardians are taken out by fall damage. But if we want to switch it to XP mode, that will unleash a little bit of water at the bottom of the drop shaft, negating fall damage for the Guardians, while also washing the Guardians into a little bubble vader, which brings them up to me. And I don't typically use the XP mode of this farm, because we do have better methods of getting experience in this world. I will say, though, that it's just nice to have the option of having a Drops mode and an XP mode. But the Guardians are falling down here now. They are building up. Once the Guardians do build up a sufficient amount, we do the dirty work of taking them out, of collecting our XP, of collecting our drops, and just doing what we need to do. Now, we were just in this room a few minutes ago, but I didn't really tell you what it was. This is our Guardian Farm storage. It houses all of our Guardian drops. Just outside of our Guardian Farm storage room, we have our Kelp Farm. Now, this just goes off automatically every few seconds, harvesting kelp, as you can see right there. Once the kelp is harvested, it is diverted this way to the kelp storage area or to various other areas where we can get use out of the kelp. So first off, we do have kelp storage right here, but this is currently full. Because this is full, kelp will be converted to bone meal and fill up these chests. But that's not all. Let's say if our bone meal storage right here is full, or if we pulled a switch, we could divert the kelp to another area, which is right up here. And in this area, we could utilize this line of smokers right here to make dried kelp and craft those into dried kelp blocks for use as fuel or building blocks. Also, in this central tower, we do have a little social kind of gathering area for our fishermen. They never seem to use it, but it is here if they ever want to. Now, speaking of our fishermen, let's go ahead and check out their accommodations. So this is where our villagers live. I hope y'all are decent, because I brought friends. We're on a tour. Hello. Nobody's home. I hear them though. They're probably upstairs. Let's go ahead and make our way upstairs, and hopefully we'll find our villagers. There they all are. Y'all having a meeting or something? Been looking all over for you. Yeah, they're having a meeting. We'll go ahead and let them handle their business. Oh, meeting's over now, huh? That's fine. This long meeting lasted all night. It's a whole nother day now. I went ahead and slept through the night to get rid of the rain, so that way we can actually kind of look at things and see them a little bit better as we move throughout Wharf. Over here, we have our fish storage. This is what we use to trade with the villagers. These are all guardian drops. Hi. I think he wants to do some trading. That's too bad. He could have done some trading yesterday when I was in the mood to trade. I'm not in the mood to trade anymore. I'm in the mood to continue this world tour. So this is where our villagers come to eat, and I do expect they'll be making their way through here soon to get breakfast. Us, on the other hand, we don't have time for breakfast. We gotta move on. So our last stop in Wharf is going to be our Sea Pickle Farm. And as far as sea pickles go, we just have a simple, if I could get up here to show you, we just have a simple little shifting floor design that provides us with all the sea pickles we could ever need, especially considering I have yet to use any sea pickles for anything in this world, really. But I think that pretty much takes care of all the major things that we needed to check out here at Wharf. So now we're going to move along to another section of our world. Ow! We're going to move along to another dimension of our world, the Nether. Now, in the Nether, we have one major section. That is our Nether Hub. This is our Nether Hub, also known as the Madhouse. And the Madhouse is a series of hallways for the most part, but it's more than that. The hallways do, in fact, lead to rooms, they lead to courtyards, they lead to outdoor areas. But this takes us to different places around our world that are too difficult to access by foot or even by flying. The Madhouse has recently sustained some damage. Unfortunately, we had some withers loose here in the Nether thanks to the apostates, and, well, that left me with some repairs to make. And you know what? I will fix this eventually. I promise I will. But all these portals, in this room at least, do lead to places around Wolfinia. Now, as far as what we're going to see here in the Nether, we do have a few stops to make before making our way back out into the overworld and seeing some of our builds outside of Wolfinia. So you will notice this first area is very much like Wolfen's Laboratory. That's because this is a Wolfen's Laboratory build. It's the counterpart to our Ghast Catcher. This is how we get ghast from the Nether to the overworld. So let's say a ghast was to spawn in this room. It's just a simple matter of releasing the flying machine at that point, which would push the ghast over into the portal, bringing the ghast to the overworld, where we could then capture the ghast in a minecart. Now, because I already have a ghast over there, I am going to stand here for a minute and just make sure no ghast spawn, because we don't want to bring a second ghast over there. I'm only equipped to handle one at a time. Now, just downstairs from our ghast catching area, we have another Wolfen's Laboratory area. This is our Basalt Farm. And as far as farming basalt goes, it's a pretty simple matter of just standing right here and just hitting the basalt with a pickaxe until we get as much as we need for whatever project we're working on. And you will see that that will be collected, yes, it will be collected by a hopper minecart, and then deposited into these chests. From here, yeah, I'm still broken. I will fix this eventually. I really will. I will. But from here, we're going to move on to our Wither Skull Farm, the Withering House. Now, the Withering House is separate from the Madhouse. It's located here beneath this very reflective sky. We must be having weird weather or something. The sky is normally not like that. But this is the Withering House, and if we head really deep down into the Withering House, we can access one of our 2 Wither Skull farms. Now, one of them is currently in operation, the other one is not. The Phase 1 Wither Farm is usable here in Phase 3. The Phase 2 Wither Farm, though, which is going to be the first one I'm going to take you to, which is up this way, was only operational in the Bedrock Dimension, and this was more or less just a cheap and easy way to temporarily collect Wither Skulls while the first farm was down. Now, this is our actual operational Wither Skull Farm. Let me go ahead and close this. That way I remember to turn everything off before we leave. Because this farm is, it's a little complicated in how it works. And if you were to look up at the very top in the actual Nether Fortress farm part of this thing, you wouldn't see too much out of the ordinary. And we just have spawning floors, flying machines, the usual stuff. But just a little bit below that, what we have is a mob sorter that separates the mobs we have spawning at this farm. And that means that it will move the mobs to one of 2 different places depending on what mob they actually are. For instance, our blazes and wither skeletons pass more or less straight through the mob sorter and end up down here with me. I'll wait for their numbers to build up a little bit and then start taking them out, collecting their drops. We'll get our bones, we'll get our coal, we'll get our wither skulls most importantly, and also our blaze rods. Meanwhile, we do a little something different with the skeletons and the pigmen that spawn at this farm. Pigmen are put into a separate chamber where they will eventually be minecarted off to despawn safely because I don't hurt pigmen. I like pigmen, I ain't messing with the pigmen. Skeletons, on the other hand, will be brought to that same chamber where they will be burned up in some lava, because I'm not as big a fan of them. Now, speaking of withers, early on in this series, we used to do regular wither battles in the overworld counterpart to this room. This is the Wither Battle Arena biome. And the Wither... Hey, fellas, what y'all doing? The Wither Battle Arena biome... Nope, we're not touring this place. Now, as far as our next few stops in this world tour go, we're going to cross the Madhouse here again, head down the opposite direction where we have a few stops to make. This path right here leads us to the End, an Ender Island, which we will check out later, but we are going to take the overworld route there. This path right here leads us back to the Guardian Farm, and this path leads us to the Pillager Outpost. Now, we are not going to make our way straight to the Pillager Outpost because there is a stop that we're going to make along the way. But let me go ahead and talk about the Madhouse once more, because we do have the ability to travel quickly through the Madhouse to get to all these far-off destinations using soul sand paths here. So this path right here leads us to our flower farm, and that is actually going to be our next stop. Welcome to one of the newest areas here in Wolfinia. This is our flower farm. And the flower farm is a fairly recent build that we constructed because we no longer have a working flower farm back in Wolfinia, at least for our regular flowers. But basically, how this works is pretty simple. We just have a bone meal dispenser growing our flowers for us, and then we unleash torrents of water that flush these various flowers down into a water stream that separates them from the seeds and then stores the actual flowers for us. And since this is built in a flower forest, we do get basically all the flowers we need for all the dye we could possibly want. Actually, it's built on the border between a flower forest biome and a plains biome, just so we can get a little bit more variety. This is where the seeds get composted, converted to bone meal to add to the dispensers. We do have another way to add bone meal to the dispensers, which we'll check out in a minute. But this does have a little interior to it. But there's not actually a whole lot to see as far as that goes. So we're just going to keep this thing moving along. Now, obviously, this area is unfinished. It's an area we just began working on. There will be terraforming done here, landscaping done here, builds built around here. And in fact, I have started planning some of the builds that we will have. For instance, over here, we will have a bone meal storage shed. And that's because deep underground here, we have a bone meal farm, currently being used by our good friend, Didi.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Wolfinia.
Yeah, Didi, I think you may have been down here for too long. I don't know why you just don't come back to the city.
I am simply of the opinion that we can better serve the city and its people by being nowhere near them for the time being.
Yeah, whatever, robot. That makes no sense. This farm is basically the same type of farm we built in Wolfinia. We built it pretty much at the same time as well. But that is all there really is to see here. So let's continue on our way. And from here, we are going to make our way into another unfinished part of this area, which I have yet to name. I'm not asking for suggestions. I'm just letting you guys know I have yet to name it. And that might even be a decision better suited for the villagers that live here, because we are visiting a village. Now, I'm going to be honest, me and these villagers did get off to a rocky start, but I think they're finally coming around. In fact, they've recently named me their locally accessible Wolfinia liaison.
Uh-oh. The dummy is here! It looks like he's doing one of those stupid world tours again!
Hello?
Get inside. He must not see us yet.
Hello? Y'all talking about me? I don't think they're talking about me. This is a village. They have their own stuff going on. But as far as this village goes, I haven't made too many changes to it yet. Basically, all the changes made were in the name of safety. I've put up walls surrounding the village, preventing mobs from getting in. I've also put up a bunch of lights to prevent mobs from spawning here. But we'll talk more about this place later.
It looks like he's leaving. I think we might be in the clear.
Hello?
Good. The preparations are nowhere near complete.
Preparations? What kind of preparations? Y'all throwing a party for me?
No!
Oh. Well, that's too bad. I like parties. And I suppose if there's no party to be found here, there's no reason for us to stick around. So let's keep this world tour moving along. Now back in the madhouse, just down the hall from our flower forest area, we have another build that I'm going to show you guys, and this is a build that we've recently recompleted here in this world. This is the Eclipse Outpost. And the Eclipse Outpost is our raid farm here in Wolfinia, and it is a raid farm probably unlike most of the raid farms you've seen, because it is, let's say, a little on the extravagant side. It's very large, meaning both very wide, very long, and also very tall. It is very much representative of Wolfinia. Now, this raid farm does it all, from getting our bad omen effect to finishing our raid. So if we come down here, we can flip this switch like that, and that will unleash water in here, washing pillagers to us. Now, this was the site of a former pillager outpost. So eventually, the pillagers that spawn there will get flushed down through here and brought to us. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, that does take a little while. There is actually a somewhat quicker and easier way to get our bad omen effect. By happy accident, let me go and show you. The pillagers do actually spawn outside the spawning room. So the easier way to do it is just fly around here and wait for a pillager with a banner to spawn in. I think we have a volunteer. We do have a volunteer. Alright, so now that we've had a pillager captain spawn in at the raid spawn area, we just need to flush the raid spawn area. That will unleash water that will wash every pillager that spawns on the raid spawn area down beneath the structure where we currently are, and it will bring them into a water stream, this water stream right here, which will wash them into a water elevator and drop them directly in front of us. And then we can take them out with our sword and get our bad omen effect and begin the raid process. Now, this starting the raid is pretty slow, but once we get going, boy do we get going. So, there you are. Now we have our bad omen effect. That means we can take the bad omen effect up to the village and start the raid. And I'm going to walk you through one raid here, but just know we can keep it going raid after raid after raid after raid after raid at this point if we wanted to. But you will notice the raid has started, the villagers are panicking. We are now going to make our way away from the village and back down here where we're actually expecting the raid to start spawning in around us. So once the bar fills up, you will see the raiders start spawning in, the horns start going off, and we get all waves of the raid spawning down here at once. And the villagers are perfectly safe, I am perfectly safe, so at this point we can make sure the pillagers are the only ones not perfectly safe. They're all going to get flushed down here towards me, and yes, this is, while I do really like this raid farm, it is not as efficient as most other raid farms you will see, especially the ones that warrant tutorials and stuff like that. It is not AFK-able, but as far as I'm concerned, it's fun, and it's the only one that looks like this. So now you can see the raiders are now making their way through the water streams towards me. The Ravagers, however, will not make their way over here. The Ravagers will get caught up in little lava pockets we've set for them, ensuring that we don't have to deal with their nonsense. So, I mean, this is one of those farms I think is fairly unique, just like our gas tree farm. It might not be the most efficient thing in the world, but it suits my needs, and it's just fun, is what it is. But now we have our pillagers starting to gather here, which means we can now start taking them out. And this provides us with a pretty decent amount of XP, it provides us with a pretty decent amount of drops, and it's satisfying is what it is. That's what this is. So you see the emeralds coming in, you see the XP coming in, it's so wonderful. We have one more, there you go, and now you notice we do have our Bad Omen effect again. So we can take that Bad Omen effect back up to the village and we can get another raid started. We are not going to, however, because we need to keep going with this tour. What we're going to do is end the raid. So to end the raid, we still bring the Bad Omen effect up to the village, but we just kind of hang out up here rather than dropping back down. So even though the raid bar is filling back up, even though the villagers are panicking, we're not going to have to deal with the raid up here. Because once the raid starts spawning in down there, it immediately starts despawning, as you can see. Which means that we have just secured victory. You hear that, guys? Victory! Woohoo! Woo, birdie! Told y'all there's nothing to worry about. Ring the victory bell. Yeah. Now, at the far reaches of the madhouse, we have access to a few different areas. For instance, our nether strip mines are just down that way. This also gives us access to our Soul Sand Valley area. We're also very near a basalt delta. A little bit that way, we have a Crimson Forest biome, and further on down this way, we have access to a mesa and a mushroom island in the overworld. Aside from that, though, there's not really too much to see here at the far reaches of the madhouse. It's actually pretty empty, to be honest with you, and it's probably not even worth having a look around. Now, there is one final build I want to show you guys before we leave the Nether, and it is not part of the madhouse. This is a completely separate area known as the Temple of Ascension. Now, the Temple of Ascension is very old and very historic, but that doesn't mean that it's beyond updating and beyond, adding stuff to it, right? Because you'll notice, you hear the blazes spawning in, we have a blaze spawner down here. This might be a good place for a blaze farm one day. But before we even consider adding anything to the Temple of Ascension, we need to, come to a decision about preserving and maintaining this place, because I'll be honest with you, this place has seen a lot, and it is kind of falling apart because of that. There are holes in the ceiling, there's holes in the floor, it's very dangerous as of right now, and that is solely the fault of the Apostates. You see, a while back the Apostates unleashed withers here in the Temple of Ascension. They also were responsible for that damage to the madhouse I showed you earlier. That was due to the withers released by the Apostates. And I have no idea why the Apostates would do all this, why they would destroy such a beautiful historic site as the Temple of Ascension with withers, what their vendetta is against Mr. Wolfens, or why they would unleash a monstrosity such as the Netherworm upon the citizens of Wolfinia. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm hoping one day Mr. Wolfens will find out and then tell me, because he is actually my only source of news in this world. But that is going to do it for our tour of the Nether here. Now it is time to move back into the overworld, where you can learn a little bit more about the Apostates. The final few stops in our world are, in a word, magical. Right here we have Apostate Island. A little bit off that way we have Ender Island. Apostate Island here, this is going to be our first stop. Now, you've probably seen this in the background as we've been making our way through Wolfinia. It does indeed stand out. Apostate Island is a magical place, I guess, guarded by this statue. I don't know why you'd have a statue guarding a place. It's not like it can really move around, do anything to stop me from landing here, going about my business. Which is probably why Mr. Wolfens won the battle against the Apostates, driving them from our land and making Wolfinia safe once more. This island is abandoned with a few small exceptions, but they are stuck here, because the only way to get to and from this island are boats accessible by the Rotunda docks right there. This is one such boat, and this boat is only used by designated officials from Wolfinia. But now it's time for us to continue our tour of Apostate Island, and there's quite a bit to see here. Not a lot of it is actually useful. The Apostate Tower is accessible through here. We're going to check that out in just a minute, but first we're going to go ahead and check out the abandoned Mage Village here on Apostate Island. And this is where the former residents of this place used to live, and where they used to gather, and where they used to do all their weird mage stuff, like probably brew potions and chant and hold rituals and, I don't know, pick each other's nose warts or whatever weird stuff mages actually get up to. I don't know. I don't care. I have my own preconceived notions of who they are and what they do, and I'm sure they're 100% correct without any evidence. Because who needs evidence? I mean, Mr. Wolfens put strict regulations on what we are and aren't allowed to know in Wolfinia for a reason. And I trust Mr. Wolfens' judgment fully, because he tells me I should. But Enchantry Island is not totally useless, because we do have a couple farms down here. We have a little mycelium farm down here. We also have an area to grow mushrooms, and a place to grow our large mushrooms right out here. Makes sense, though, that fungi would grow in this place. Just another thing that likes to thrive in the darkness, I guess. But now it is time to make our way into the most dangerous, the most cursed, the most deplorable area of our world, the Apostate Tower. This place once belonged to a group called the Arcanine Order. And ironically, the Arcanine Order stood against Order. They stood against Wolfinia. They stood against Mr. Wolfens. Now, what their actual stances were, I don't know, but, I mean, you can look around here and imagine that they were probably, not good stances, right? Mr. Wolfens never actually told me what their stances were. Unfortunately, I can't give you any information on that. But, I mean, just look at the state of this place. I mean, that, if nothing else, should tell you everything you need to know about the Arcanine Order. Now, I did mention we had some stragglers here on Apostate Island. These clerics we can assume were followers of the Arcanine Order, given that they're here in the Apostate Tower. They will be dealt with once we get some prisons built. Mr. Wolfens has proposed taking a little bit of money out of our school budgets to get that done. Now, as far as useful stuff at the Apostate Tower goes, we do have a simple little ice farm over here, which has yet to freeze back over since the last time I used it. Well, that's because I never come over here. Why would I want to? Now, obviously, as we're moving through Apostate Island, and especially here at the Apostate Tower, we do get a lot more into the lore side of things. Now, as far as lore goes, I would love to just give you a quick synopsis on everything that's been going on here in Wolfinia, but unfortunately, my memory is a little fuzzy, let's say. And to be fair, that's probably because the lore is a mess. It's a lot like the architecture here at the Apostate Tower. Even in this one tower, we have two staircases running parallel to each other, just winding and winding around in circles that seem to go nowhere. It's the kind of architecture that makes you wonder if the guy that built all this had any idea what he was doing at all, or did he just wing it, Because you come all this way and all you see is this. Mirror. Why would I want to come all this way to see a reflection of myself? Makes no sense at all. I got a mirror in my bathroom I can look at if I want to. But I guess I'm getting a little off subject here. Right now we're at the pinnacle of the Apostate Tower. The only thing really of note here is this wonderful view we have of Wolfinia, home sweet home, where I can't wait to get back to. So you know what? Let's go ahead and wrap up this tour because we don't have too much more left to look at. A little bit further on this way, we'll have our final stop here in the overworld, Ender Island. And as the name Ender Island would suggest, actually we're going to make a quick stop before we get to Ender Island because I almost forgot about this. We have one more build here on the way, and this is a spider farm. Now because this spider farm is outside, it really only works at nighttime. Luckily it is nighttime, and I think you just saw it work. I think we just had a spider spawn in here. Now because this is an AFK farm with no input from me needed, we really only get string from this thing. So it's really only good for short little AFK sessions at times when I need some string. But we were talking about Ender Island. Ender Island, being an island, is accessible by boat from either the Apostate Island or Wolfinia. Now, as the name Ender Island would suggest, Ender Island is the home of our end portal. And don't worry, this place is perfectly safe to walk around at night. I think the donkey here could probably attest to that. Because we do make good use of hidden lighting, of non-spawnable blocks, and of natural or unnatural barricades to make sure we don't have any mobs spawning or getting to places where we don't want them. And this is something we've considered all throughout the world, all throughout Wolfinia, including here on Ender Island, where Reconnaissance Labs is studying the end portal. And you know what? This is actually supposed to be a secured area, so let's go ahead and close the door right now because that doesn't need to be open if we're not actually in there on official business. We're going to take a quick walk around the island first, just so I can show you some of the landscaping and some of the terraforming that went into this place, because believe me, Ender Island did not always look like this. As I mentioned when we started this world tour, I like for areas to feel complete, and sometimes if we're not making builds on them, if sometimes we're not making weird redstone contraptions, we are at least going to touch on the landscaping and trying to make sure that every one of the areas that we make our way to in this world, every one of the areas that we touch is special in some way, I guess. Don't tell Mr. Wolfens I said that. He hates it when I get all sappy. Now, even though Reconnaissance Labs has set up shop here on Ender Island, not everything going on here at Ender Island is Reconnaissance Laboratory design. The door was here previously, as were all these things on the side. This right here is my storage room, work area, with a llama in it. You come out, llama? You can't get out because your ears. Tell me how'd you get in there in the first place then, huh? Over here, this is a Reconnaissance Laboratory area though. This is the Dimensional Stabilizer, which is a Reconnaissance Laboratory experiment which was created to, I suppose, stabilize dimensions. Don't actually know how it works though, so we're just going to turn this off for the time being. Wonderful. Now, there is something else we're going to take a look at before we make our way into the end, because also housed here at Ender Island is our Silverfish Relocator. And the Silverfish Relocator's job is basically to spawn silverfish and bring them into the end using water streams. Now you may ask yourself, why in the world would we want to bring silverfish over to the end? That's a ridiculous thing to do. Yes. Yes, it is. But we do have a farm over there that does make use of the silverfish. Usually I would let them build up a lot more than I'm going to now, but I am going to just let them build up a little bit, wait for a few silverfish to spawn. That way I can show you what we actually have going on over there. So just give me a few minutes. I mean, it's not like there's really much else to look at here at Ender Island anyway. Because this isn't like the movies, it's not like video games where, you know, the character goes off to some ancient site and magically there's ruins beneath the ground, there's, you know, ancient temples or secret passages, any of that nonsense. Okay, so now that we have a few silverfish that have made their way into the end, it is time for us to join them. Now, Owie. As we pass through the end, I do get nipped at on occasion. This is nowhere near as bad as it normally is. But these silverfish will go up the water elevator and down the silverfish slide to the central area of our island. And at the central area of our island, we do have a build that I'm going to bring you guys to real quick before we check out the main build that we have here in the end. Because this is one of only 2 structures that we've built out here so far. So eventually those silverfish are going to come right on down here into this house, and they're going to occupy a room here. Now, once this room right here is filled up with silverfish, we then build a wither right here. And that guy doesn't like silverfish. He actually converts them into something he does like, wither roses. Fortunately, that's something I like too. Now, as far as the aesthetics of this build go, we're just going to leave it alone. Because I don't know how to properly use end blocks and builds. That's something I still need to learn. But we're going to go ahead and check out our other build here in the end. This is Ender Island. And Ender Island is home to our our Enderman farm. Now this is a build we recently renovated for Phase 3. It was originally a Phase 2 build, but here in Phase 3 it does work actually a lot better than it did in Phase 2. So if we come down here, we can see that Nope, hold on. No, it's too far down. Originally, this glass bridge went all the way across, and that made this place a lot safer, but we had to take that out for reasons. Chief among those reasons, the fact that Endermen teleported to it and completely defeated the purpose of this farm. But if we come down here, it is very, very loud, because we have tons of Endermen just waiting to give us tons and tons of XP and more ender pearls than I will ever possibly need. I think this is probably our best XP farm in the world, but I don't think it's the most useful one. I think the raid farm kind of takes that title, but you can't deny the results of this. XP floating all over the place. But that is the last build we're going to be taking a look at here in this world tour, so let's go ahead and wrap things up. There is another world tour down, and boy am I happy that's over. A lot of you guys know I don't like actually doing these world tours, but I do know that a lot of you guys enjoy watching them, and that does bring me an incredible amount of satisfaction. 5 years, nearly 5 years in this world, and it has been an incredible nearly 5 years for me, and that's mostly thanks to you guys for your support. There's no way I would be doing this without your continued support and encouragement and general positivity. I'm not just aiming this at you guys that have been here since the beginning. Very few of you were here at the beginning. I'm talking about everybody that has joined in this journey along the way. It means a whole lot to me, and we do have a long way left to go before Wolfinia will finally be finished. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to hit that little thumbs up button. That would mean a whole lot to me. And if you want to see more, please remember to subscribe. But since I have already said thank you, I'm just going to go ahead and say bye now.